You know, I think that he would be very proud of certain things that have happened in our nation. For example, he'd be proud that our nation came together in 2008 and elected its first African-American president, and then came together again and re-elected that president. He'd be pleased about the African-American CEOs, like with American Express, Xerox, but he would challenge us to do more and provide more, create more opportunities for more African-Americans to become CEOs and lead corporate America. He'd be very concerned, however, about the issues of poverty, some issues around race and militarism and violence. What I mean by that is, in 1963, we had about 20 million people living in poverty. Today, we have nearly 60 million. He'd be very concerned about that. How do we create a climate of entrepreneurship? He'd be concerned about the verdict in the Trayvon Martin case. He'd be concerned about the fact that the Voting Rights Act was signed in 1965, but just a couple of months ago, the Supreme Court gutted that. So we've got to create a new Voting Rights Act to ensure that no one is mistreated as it relates to being able to vote. And we'd be very concerned about the violence that occurs within our communities, as well as the fact that our world community is broached for some level of violence. We got to find a way to treat our fellow human beings in a different way. We got to be more humane to our fellow human beings as a nation and as a world community.
Much of what you said is looking forward, which is fantastic, as we're also looking back to 50 years. One of the great lessons from your father was you can achieve a lot without any violence by doing exactly the opposite, by telling people they've got to act peacefully. That's perhaps a message that might be perhaps not heard as much today as it was 50 years ago when he spoke.
Well, it is certainly very relevant, whether it is, again, in communities around the United States, like Washington, D.C., where I am now, or Atlanta, where I live, or Chicago, where we see violence occurring every day in a community, or whether it's Newtown, Connecticut, where tragically just a few months back children were killed in a school system, or Columbine several years ago, where gun violence is beyond epidemic, or whether it is globally, where we see violence, whether it's in Turkey or you know, tragically Syria or Egypt, or anywhere in the world where violence is erupting.